Say sorry, or get out. My father's voice was calm. Too calm, not angry, not loud. That's how I knew he meant it. I stood in the middle of the living room, my bag already half packed, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. Across the room sat my sister, his precious favorite, scrolling on her phone like this moment meant nothing. Her son was sprawled on the couch, shoes on, crumbs everywhere, watching cartoons at full volume. The house smelled like comfort, like safety, but none of it was meant for me. My sister, Amanda, had always been special. Not because she worked harder. Not because she was kinder. Not because she was responsible. She was special because she was his. His golden child, his pride, his excuse for every injustice. If Amanda failed, it was someone else's fault. If she succeeded, it was because of Dad's great parenting. And me, I was the background noise. The inconvenience. The one who should be grateful just to exist under his roof. From childhood, I learned one rule. Don't cause problems. Because problems were only allowed when Amanda caused them. It started with something small. It always does. Amanda's son broke my laptop, the one I used for work. The one I paid for. The one I needed. I didn't yell. I didn't insult him. I simply said, "Hey, please don't touch my things." That was it. That single sentence triggered a war. Amanda snapped. "Don't talk to my child like that." Dad stormed in like I had committed a crime. "What's going on?" he demanded. Before I could speak, Amanda cried. She yelled at him. "She's always attacking us." I opened my mouth to explain. Dad raised his hand. "Enough." And just like that, my truth didn't matter. "That kid is family," Dad said coldly. "And Amanda is my daughter." I swallowed. "I'm your daughter too." He looked at me, not with love, not with concern, with annoyance. "You're always difficult," he said. "You need to apologize." For what? For asking for respect, for having boundaries, for existing. "I didn't do anything wrong," I said quietly. That's when he said it. "Then pack your things and leave." Silence swallowed the room. Amanda smirked. Her son laughed, unaware. My legs felt weak. "You're choosing them," I whispered. Again, Dad crossed his arms. "Say sorry, or get out." For years, I had swallowed my pride, lowered my voice, killed my boundaries, all for crumbs of approval that never came. But something inside me finally snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. "I'm not sorry," I said. Dad's eyes widened. "You're really doing this?" I nodded. "Yes." I grabbed my bag and walked out. That night, I slept on a friend's couch. No money, no plan, no safety net, but for the first time in my life, I could breathe. I stared at the ceiling and whispered to myself, if being loved requires humiliation, then loneliness is better. I didn't know it yet, but that night wasn't my downfall. It was my rebirth. The first night after I left my father's house, I didn't cry. That surprised me. I lay on my friend Rachel's couch, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun slowly above me, slicing the silence into soft mechanical hums. No yelling, no accusations, no one telling me to be the bigger person. Just quiet, and for the first time in my life, I realized something terrifying. I had no home. In the morning, Rachel gently knocked on the wall. "You can stay a few days," she said kindly. I wish I could offer more. A few days. That phrase echoed in my head like a countdown clock. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Thank you, really." But inside, panic crawled up my spine. I was an adult with a job that barely paid rent prices. No savings, because every extra dollar had always gone to family emergencies. No backup plan, because I was never allowed to imagine a life without them. I opened my phone. Unread messages from Dad. "Greater than you embarrassed me. This is your fault. Say sorry and come home." No apology, no concern, just control. I didn't reply. The days turned into weeks. Rachel's couch became Mark's spare room. Mark's spare room became a mattress at Lily's place. Lily's place became an air mattress in a coworker's living room. Every move chipped away at my pride. Every, just for a few days, felt like a reminder. You are temporary. You are inconvenient. At night, I lay awake replaying my father's voice. Say sorry. If I said it, I could go back. Warm bed, familiar walls, food in the fridge, but also, disrespect, silence, erasure. I asked myself the hardest question I'd ever faced. Was comfort worth my dignity? One night, after a 12-hour shift, I sat on the edge of the air mattress and cried. Not quiet tears, ugly, shaking sobs. I didn't even do anything wrong, I whispered into my hands. I just asked for basic respect. That's when Lily sat beside me. You know, she said gently, people who punish you for boundaries don't want peace. They want power. Her words hit hard, because deep down, I already knew that. I started saying no. No to unpaid overtime. No to lending money I didn't have. No to apologizing when I wasn't wrong. It felt unnatural at first. Every no came with guilt. Every boundary felt like a crime. But something strange happened. With each no, I felt stronger, straighter, more real. I wasn't becoming rude. I was becoming solid. One afternoon, my manager called me into his office. We're offering you a temporary promotion, he said. More responsibility, more hours, slight pay increase, temporary, just like my living situation. But I accepted. I worked harder than anyone else. Not to impress him, but to prove something to myself. That I wasn't useless, that I wasn't weak, that I wasn't the problem. 3 months later, the promotion became permanent. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. The apartment was tiny. 1 room, thin walls, a window that barely let in light. But when I held the keys in my hand, I cried again, happy tears. This wasn't just an apartment. It was proof. Proof that I could survive without begging for love. Proof that I could build something from nothing. Proof that rejection didn't mean failure. I placed my bag on the floor and whispered, no one can kick me out of my own life anymore. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. Dad. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. What? I said calmly. Silence. Then, Amanda is struggling, he said. She needs help. I almost laughed. Of course she did. And, I asked, you should come back. Family sticks together. There it was. The same manipulation. Different day. I have a home now, I replied. And I'm not apologizing for something I didn't do. His voice hardened. You've changed. Yes, I said. I've grown. And I hung up. No fear. No guilt. No regret. Just peace. I stared at my ceiling, and smiled. Because being kicked out didn't destroy me. It forced me to stand on my own spine. And once you learn how to stand, you never beg to kneel again. The first thing success gave me wasn't money. It was distance. Distance from chaos. Distance from manipulation. Distance from people who only loved me when I was useful. And that distance made them nervous. My life didn't suddenly become perfect. I still budgeted carefully. Still ate cheap meals. Still worked long hours. But something undeniable had changed. I was stable. I had my own place. My own routine. My own peace. And people noticed. Coworkers treated me differently. Friends respected me more. Even strangers sensed a quiet confidence in me. But the ones who noticed the most? My family. It came late at night. Greater than hey, Dad said you're doing okay now. I stared at the screen. No, how are you? No, I'm sorry. Just information, like I was a rumor. I typed back. Greater than I'm fine. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, greater than you didn't have to make such a big deal back then. I laughed softly. A big deal. Being kicked out of my home wasn't a big deal to her. Because she had never been the one standing outside with a bag in her hand. I didn't respond. Silence is powerful when you finally stop explaining yourself. 6 months later, my manager called me in again. We're expanding, he said. And I want you leading the new team. This time, it wasn't temporary. It came with real pay. Real authority. Real recognition. When I walked out of his office, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from pride. I had earned this, without connections, without favoritism, without anyone carrying me. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, lights off, city glowing through the window. And I whispered, they were wrong about me. That's when the calls started. Not apologies. Requests. Dad needed help with bills. Amanda needed childcare. Someone needed money. Someone needed favors. Funny how I was selfish when I needed boundaries. But family, when they needed something. I said no, every time, and every no made them angrier. You've changed, Dad said during one call. You used to care about family. I took a deep breath. No, I replied calmly. I used to tolerate disrespect. He scoffed. So you're just going to abandon us? Abandon. That word. I almost reminded him who abandoned whom. But instead I said, I'm choosing myself. And hung up. Success is lonely when you don't have a cheering section. I celebrated my wins alone. Ate takeout on promotion nights. Clapped for myself in silence. And sometimes, That hurt. I won't lie. There were nights I wished someone would say, "I'm proud of you." But then I realized something powerful. The version of me who survived homelessness was already proud. And that was enough. I ran into Amanda at a grocery store. She looked tired, stressed, angry. "You think you're better than us now," she said bitterly. I looked at her, really looked. At the woman who never defended me. Never questioned Dad. Never stood up for me. "No," I said gently. "I just stopped shrinking." She rolled her eyes. "Whatever," and walked away. I didn't chase her. Because growth means knowing when to stop chasing people who only loved you small. They thought kicking me out would break me. Instead, it freed me. Freed me from the role of the scapegoat. Freed me from constant guilt. Freed me from begging for crumbs of love. Pain became discipline. Loneliness became focus. Rejection became direction. That night, I wrote in my journal, "I will never apologize for having boundaries. I will never beg for love again. And I will build a life so solid that no one can threaten it." I closed the notebook, and for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I felt ready, because the higher you rise, the more uncomfortable your success becomes for those who needed you beneath them. The apology came on a Tuesday. Ordinary day, ordinary hour, nothing dramatic about it, and maybe that's what made it hurt more. My phone buzzed while I was cooking dinner. Pasta boiling, music playing softly. Dad's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it for a long moment. Months ago, this would have sent my heart racing. Fear, guilt, hope. Now, just stillness. I answered, "Hello." His voice sounded older. Not angry, not commanding, tired. "I need to talk," he said quietly. I leaned against the counter. "You're talking." A pause. Then words I never thought I'd hear. "I think I made mistakes." My chest tightened, not because I needed this, but because a younger version of me had waited years for it. Amanda moved out, he continued. She needed space. Said I was controlling. I almost smiled. Almost. "And her son?" I asked. "She struggles," he admitted. "Bills, stress, responsibility." So now he understood. Not when it was me suffering, but when his favorite stopped benefiting from him. "I didn't realize how much I leaned on you," he said. "How much you carried." I closed my eyes. "You didn't lean on me. You used me." "But I didn't say it." He sighed deeply. "I was wrong to kick you out." There it was. The sentence I thought would heal everything. But instead, it landed flat. "I'm sorry," he said. Simple words. Too late. I let the silence stretch. "You didn't apologize because you understood," I said calmly. "You apologized because life stopped protecting you." He didn't deny it. That hurt more than an argument ever could. "You could come home," he said. The doors open. I looked around my apartment. My couch. My books. My peace. "No," I said gently. "What?" he snapped. "I won't come back. You're holding a grudge." I shook my head. "No, I'm holding a boundary. I forgive you," I continued. "But forgiveness doesn't mean returning to the same system that broke me." He went quiet. "You've changed," he said again. "Yes," I replied, "and it saved my life." "You chose favorites," I said. "And when I asked for fairness, you punished me." He whispered, "I didn't know." I laughed softly. "You knew. You just didn't care enough to stop." Silence. "I loved you," I said. "I still do. But I won't disappear for you again." "I hope you're happy," he said bitterly. "I am," I answered. And I hung up. My hands were shaking, but my spine was straight. I cried for the child I was. For the love I never received. For the version of me that thought obedience would earn safety. But I didn't cry for him. I had outgrown the need. Some people only apologize when consequences arrive. That doesn't make the apology fake. But it does make it insufficient. And I finally understood. You don't owe reconciliation to people who only regret losing control, not losing you. I slept deeply that night. No nightmares. No anxiety. Just rest. Because closure doesn't always come from hearing, "I'm sorry." Sometimes it comes from finally saying, "You don't get to hurt me anymore." After that phone call, something inside me finally went quiet. Not empty. Not numb. Settled. Like a storm that had exhausted itself and moved on. I stopped waiting for messages that would never heal me. Stopped replaying conversations I wished had gone differently. Stopped imagining alternate versions of my father, one who protected instead of punished. That chapter had closed, and in the silence that followed, something powerful began to grow. My life became simple. Wake up early, go to work, come home, cook, read, sleep, no chaos, No emotional landmines. No fear of saying the wrong thing. At first, the calm felt strange. I had grown up in dysfunction, where love was loud, conditional, and unstable. Peace felt unfamiliar. But slowly, I realized something profound. Peace is not boring. Peace is healing. For the first time in my life, every effort went into me. I enrolled in evening courses to sharpen my skills. I read books on confidence, money, and emotional intelligence. I learned how to budget, not out of fear, but out of vision. Each small habit felt like a brick. And day by day, I was building something solid. A life no one could threaten with guilt. A future no one could sabotage with favoritism. Something else changed too. The way I carried myself. I no longer apologized for taking space. I no longer explained my decisions. I no longer shrank in rooms where I deserved to stand tall. People noticed, not because I was louder, but because I was certain. Certainty is magnetic. One afternoon, an email landed in my inbox. A leadership role, bigger responsibilities, bigger paycheck. 2 years ago, I would have doubted myself. Now, I said yes without hesitation. Because survival had already trained me for pressure. And hardship had already taught me discipline. Success didn't scare me anymore. It felt familiar. Even if my father called again. Even if my sister apologized. Even if everything changed overnight. It wouldn't matter. Because this life wasn't built on their approval. It was built on self-respect, boundaries, earned confidence, quiet resilience. And no one can take away what they didn't give you. One night, I stood in front of the mirror and really looked at myself. Not the broken version, not the desperate version, not the obedient version, but the woman who survived rejection, homelessness, and emotional neglect. And still chose kindness without self-betrayal. I smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because I was finally on my own side. Sometimes, being kicked out of a toxic system is not punishment. It's permission. Permission to grow. Permission to heal. Permission to build a life where love isn't earned through suffering. And I understood something that night. They didn't break me. They released me. They didn't realize they lost me the day I walked out. They thought I would come back. Begging, apologizing, shrinking. They thought silence was temporary. That hunger would teach me obedience. That loneliness would break my spine. They were wrong. Months passed. No visits. No holidays together. No family dinners. At first, they enjoyed the quiet. No one to challenge them. No one to set boundaries. No one to remind them of uncomfortable truths. But slowly, something shifted. Bills piled up. Stress increased. Blame had nowhere to land. And suddenly, the scapegoat was gone. It was a simple text. From Amanda, greater than Dad's not doing well. I read it without emotion. No greeting. No apology. Just a hook. I didn't reply immediately. Not because I was cruel. But because I had learned to pause. Something survival never allowed me before. An hour later, another message. Greater than he misses you. I exhaled slowly. Missing me was not the same as respecting me. 2 days later, I stood in front of my father's house. The same door. The same porch. But I was not the same person. I knocked. He opened the door and froze. Not because he was happy. But because he was unprepared. I looked stronger. Calmer. Unreachable. You came, he said quietly. Yes, I replied. But not to return. Inside, everything looked diminished. Not physically. Emotionally. The power that once lived there was gone. Dad sat down heavily. You don't call anymore, he said. I nodded. I stopped chasing people who don't choose me. He flinched. I didn't think you'd really leave, he admitted. I thought you'd cool off. I met his eyes. You gambled my dignity against your control, I said calmly. And you lost. Silence. Not angry silence. Defeated silence. I didn't stop him, she said softly. I liked being the favorite. There it was. The truth I had always known. I know, I replied. That's why I left, she cried. I didn't comfort her. Not out of cruelty, but because accountability must be felt to be real. Dad's voice cracked. I don't know how to fix this. I stood. You can't fix the past, I said. But you can respect the present. I walked to the door. He panicked. Don't go like this. I turned back. This is the most honest I've ever been here. I love you, I said. But I won't live where love costs self-respect. He nodded slowly. Too late, but real. I stepped outside. The air felt lighter. Not because they had changed. But because I no longer needed them to. That's when they realized. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But deeply. They didn't lose a daughter. They lost control, and that loss was permanent. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post about it. I didn't tell anyone. I just went home, cooked dinner, and slept peacefully, because the strongest wins don't look like revenge. They look like freedom. I used to think winning meant being chosen. Chosen by a parent, chosen over a sibling, chosen as enough. I was wrong. Winning wasn't being chosen. Winning was choosing myself. Life didn't suddenly become perfect after that day. There were still bills, still stress, still moments of loneliness, but there was no fear. No fear of being thrown out. No fear of saying the wrong thing. No fear of losing love for having boundaries. Because love that disappears when you stand up for yourself was never love, it was control. I stopped explaining my story. I didn't justify why I left. I didn't defend my boundaries. I didn't argue with people who didn't want to understand. Silence became my language, and peace became my reward. Over time, my life grew quietly but steadily. I advanced in my career. I saved money. I traveled. I surrounded myself with people who respected. No. I laughed without anxiety. I rested, without guilt. No one yelled. No one punished me. No one demanded I shrink. I learned something important. Healthy love doesn't feel like fear. Sometimes, late at night, memories returned. The living room. The ultimatum. Say sorry or get out. And every time, I smiled. Because that moment, the one meant to break me, became the moment that freed me. If someone forces you to apologize for having boundaries. If love is conditional on silence. If respect only exists when you obey. That's not family. That's a system built on fear. And you are allowed to leave systems that hurt you. Even if you were born into them. Not because I was angry. But because I had outgrown the version of me that survived there. I didn't need closure from them anymore. I had closure within myself. My father thought kicking me out would teach me a lesson. It did. It taught me. I am capable. I am resilient. I am worthy without permission. I do not need to beg for love. I do not need to apologize for existing. And most importantly, sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away without hatred, without revenge, and build a life they can't touch. I didn't win by proving them wrong. I didn't win by being forgiven. I didn't win by being invited back. I won by leaving. I won by choosing myself. I won by never going back to a place where love was conditional. And that was the moment my life truly began.